On Daf Ayin Daled Amud Beis, we would like to learn Tosfos Dibra Maskil V'ha Esther. Right, the Gemara says that the normal rule is that if somebody forces you, then Yavor V'al Yehorig. However, the exception is Avodah Zarah, Gilui Arayis, and Shvichas Damim. If they force you b'far Hesya publicly, then even on Shar mitzvos, you have to give up your life. And the Gemara asks, what about Esther? I mean, she agreed to get married to Achashverosh. That's Farhesia. And Abai answers that Esther is not an action, but rather is Karka Olam. Rava says that in a case where they tell you to do an Avera Lahanos Atzman, there's no mitzvah of Mesiras Nefesh because there's no Chil Hashem. V'tema, Tosfos asks the following question. Why did the Gemara ask from Farhesia, which is a din of Kiddush Hashem for Shar Averos? Why didn't the Gemara just ask from Gilui Arayis? And that would apply even if it wasn't for Farhesia. Nobody disagrees that you have to give up your life rather than violate Ritzicha and kill somebody, or to have a bia of Eshes Ish, of Arayos. So why did they have to ask the Kasha, raise the issue of Esther Farhesia, that she had to be Moser Nafsha? Why didn't they just say that Esther is Gilui Arayos? And Tosfos is assuming that Esther was married to Mordechai. Ukmochen kasha. Furthermore, Bereish Ksubis, the Gemara says on Daf Gimel Amud Beis and Masechet Ksubis, in the case of a chassan marrying a kala, and they want the marriage to take place on Yom Revi because of sakana, and the Gemara says that they made a gzeira that a besula shenises b'Yom Revi tibah lehegmon tchila. So the Gemara says that's not a sakana, that's an ones situation. If, let's say, tibol lehegma would be a rape situation, why do you call it a sakana? And the Gemara answers there, the ika tznuos the masri nafshayim, because there are women who go beyond the letter of the law, they are tznuos, and they give up their lives and they'll die just to protect themselves from being violated by the hegma. And that's why it's called the sakana, because these women will, on their own initiative, offer their lives. Uparach, and the Gemara asks, why don't we publicly teach the women that they don't have to give up their lives? And in this case, they're allowed to submit themselves to Be'ilah with the Hegma. So Tosfos asks, I don't get it. My kusha, what kind of question is that? Ashaper avdid the Maseh Nafshai Mishum Gilui Arayos. In the case of a Nara Murasa, she has to give up her life rather than submit herself to Gilui Arayos. So what does the Gemara mean when it says Lidrash Lahu, the Onesh Shari? So basically we have two kashas here in Tosfos. The first kasha is that why didn't the Gemara here by Esther ask the question from Gilui Arayos? And furthermore, Tosfos says, I don't understand. The Gemara says Lidrash Lahu Onesh Shari in Ksubis. Why is that so? After all, it's Gilui Arayos. The Tiritz Rabbeinu Tam, the ein chayovim misa al beilas oved kochavim. That if a married woman, a Jewish woman, has a relationship with a non-Jew, she will not be put to death. Mishum derachmona afkare lezare di oved kochavim. The bia of a guy is not considered like a bia. The Gemara says in Yevamah Staf Sadiches, Tichsiv v'zirmas susim zirmasam. which I believe is referring to the Mitzrim, but again, it applies to every guy, that the Torah, the Tanakh is comparing their bia to that of a sus. It means it's a bilas behema. It's not considered gili arayis, and therefore the Gemara didn't ask the question here. Well, Esther should be obligated to give up her life because of gili arayis, because her bia with Achashverosh would not generate a chiyuv of yeharg val yavor, because the beila of a guy is like the beila of a behemoth. But the only problem is it's still an avera, obviously, and it's in the case of Esther b'far Hesya, and that's why the Gemara raised the question about Esther b'far Hesya. And in Ksubis, we understand the Gemara's question of Lidrash Lahudi on Shari, because that's a case of Hegmon, which is a bias akum, and that's not called a bia, it's just like a bias behema, and she has no obligation to give up her life. Umitoch kach, meaning based on the answer that we gave, that Be'ilas Akum is called Be'ilas Behema. Hayarotza Rabbeinu Tam lahativ. This is a hora lemaisa of Rabbeinu Tam, a question that actually came up. Bas Yisrael Shehemira. She unfortunately was baptized or something like that, and she converted to another religion. Uba ove kochavim. She had a relationship with a guy. Vishuvnis gayer ima. And this guy now undergoes gerus, and she wants to do tshuva and come back to the fold, and now she wants to marry this guy that she had a relationship with, who now became a Jew, l'kaim of yadus. And Rabbeinu Tam allowed the marriage to go on. He did not demand that he divorce her after the gerus. Why? We have a principle that if a woman has an adulterous relationship, she's asur l'bal, asur l'boel. She's not allowed to have relations with her husband, nor with the boel. But lo shayach l'meimer echel l'boel b'bias ovei kochavim. Just like we said that an Ashes ish, if she has a relation with a Jew, she's asura both to the boel and the baal. But if she had a relationship with an akum, then havia could be as behema, and therefore she's not asura to the boel. Now, I'm not sure exactly how far Rabbeinu Tam is willing to go. Let's say she was an Ashes Ish. Would she be allowed to resume her marriage relation with her husband? That wasn't the case, but that actually came up. But I'm just wondering what would be the din. Is she asur al baila based on bias behema, meaning bias akum? I mean, I suspect that even Rabbeinu Tam would agree that she cannot resume her relation with her husband. But as far as the boel is concerned, we view it as bias behema. But maybe that's not so. Maybe once you're saying Lagabi the boel, it's bias behema, you'll have to apply the same yardstick Lagabi baila. I don't know. It's not clear to me. I don't hear you. I'm sorry. There's something with the. Try again.
I'm asking if the by sota hasra But here, if certainly there's hasra, then she would be permitted. But maybe because there's no hasra, that
You're talking about Rabbeinu Tam's case where she converted to another
she
religion?
can go back.
Is that what you're talking about? I'm having trouble here with the internet connection.
Well, sure, so the connection's not good. But I'm just wondering if no, that's right.
You see, what I'm trying to say here is that Rabbeinu Tam allowed her to marry the guy who became a Jew, and he was the Boel. But I still suspect, I can't prove it to you 100% right now, that as far as her husband is concerned, she's Asura L'Baila. And Rabbeinu Tam is basically differentiating between the Isa to the Baal and the Isa to the Boel, which means that in the case of the Baal, that Bia would generate an Isa to the Baal, because it's like a Bias Behema, but it's not exactly a Bias Behema. It's still a Bias Adam out of marriage. It's an adulterous act. It's Umala Bamal. But nevertheless, as far as the Boel is concerned, Rabbeinu Tam is going to be matir because we view his Be'ila as a Be'ilas Behema. Again, what that really means is that it's not a full-fledged Gili Arayis. Or maybe what Rabbeinu Tam is saying is that when he undergoes Gerus, he's a new person. He's Kekatan Shenoladam. So I think that what we're asking now is going to be the next part of Tosfos. Hiksha Rav Rabbeinu Yitzchak Barab Mordechai. He's otherwise known as the Rivam. The Al Karchach Bebias Akum Nesra Lebal. Oh, that's what I suspect. Can I read on Hassam? The Gemara, I guess, in Ksubis comes to the conclusion that the reason why they didn't want to publicly darshan that she's allowed to have relations with the Hegmon is because maybe there are prutzos that would take that as kind of like a heter, mishum dika prutzos, and they'll willingly agree to have this relationship with the Hegmon. And then there'll be Asura al-Bail. Ubeperka isha shenis armala. That's Ksubis Chavav. Nami amrina gabi ha'isha shenech b'shabiyad akum al yidei nefashos Asura al-Bail. In other words, we're afraid that maybe she had a ratzon to have this relationship. But we see clearly that if a guy has a relationship with a Jewish woman who's married, then she can no longer resume her relationship with her husband. The Amrina Nami b'Megillah that Esther said to Mordechai after she'll go to Achashverosh, Kasher avadati, that I'll be Asura, I can no longer what's the word I'm looking for? Resume my relationship with you, with my husband, even though her relationship now is with a guy. Amal Gabi Baila. We see that vis-a-vis the Baal, even though the Torah says Zir Masusim Zir Mosam Loch Shiva Bias Akum Kibias Behema. she becomes asur al baila. The gam lekuhuna nifseles b'biyoso. We know that if a guy has a relation with a Jewish girl, she can no longer marry a Kohen. She's a zona. Afal pisha bias behema enapot nifseles the angels behema. Right. So if a woman has a sodomy, she could still marry a Kohen. Dizare the obi kochavim hu di afker rachmonalinyan chayis. That zirma susim zirmosa means that the zera, the children of an akum, are not considered his children. They're not miyuchas achra. Avol bias ovekochavim lo afkare. Bias akum is not considered like a bias behema. There's no yuchsin if he has a child. The kevan shenesel lebal asur leboel mivenitma venitma. Right, the Gemara in Sota derives from the double language v'nitma, echad lebal v'echad leboel. Basically, it's one pasuk that generates an isur on both the baal and the boel. And this bia will generate an isur on the baal, bias akum, as we've proven, and therefore the isur is on the boel as well. And for some reason, the Gemara is not willing, the Tosfos is not willing to apply the principle of ger katan shenolad dami, like he's got a new entity, a new identity, a new personality. The Amrina Nami Besota, Beperk Arusa, the Kusi Maknin al Yodo. Notice the Baal could give a kinui to his wife, al tisasri im akum, and if she goes ahead and violates that kinui and she has stira with an akum, then we have the dinam of sota. And she's not allowed to live with her husband and she has to drink for the maid marorin. Uposel bitruma, and the guy, if he has a relationship with a bas kohen, he passes her as a zona lekuna, letruma. Uparach pshita, the Gemara asks that simple. The v'nister avi nitma merachmana, echad lebal v'echad leboel v'echad letruma. Mishani mal detema kiyama v'nister avi nitma hani milihecha debahach bia asirale. In other words, that the bia generates an isur as opposed to an akum, lafuke akum to belav hochinami asira. It's not that she created this isur on the akum because of that bia. Even without the bia, she's asur akum kamash malan, and that's the Gemara of Rav Hemnuna, that an akum is considered as part of the parish of Sot. Alma filu gabi nachri shaykh v'nitma lesar lebal v'huadin leboel. So it comes out that according to Rabbeinu Tam, somehow we have to differentiate between the Isur to the Baal and the Isur to the Boel. It's clear that the Akum generates an Isur to the Baal, but Rabbeinu Tam is saying not to the Boel, and therefore if he converts, she can get married to him. But what in heaven's tarnation is the difference between the Baal and the Boel? They're both learned from the same pasuk of V'nitma V'nitma. So again, we started to give an answer for Rabbeinu Tam. I don't know if we finished it. We said that with regard to the Baal, it's umala b'mal. You know, she has a relationship with another man that's me'ila b'baila. Even though he's a guy, it doesn't make a difference. But as far as the Boel is concerned, it's got to be like the same identity of the Boel. But here he was misgayer, and he takes upon himself a new identity. And then we have the Rivam's answer. V'hadalo parach hacha v'ha'ester gila rayas havi is the kimle de mahani time of the karka olam le'inyan de l'machayev limsar atzma mishum arayas. This we've discussed this in the past. So just to summarize, Rabbeinu Tam assumes that Esther was married to Mordechai. She's an Ashes Ish. But Rachmana Afkar Elazari di Akum, Bi'las Akum is considered Vizir Masusim, Vizir Mosam, and therefore she doesn't have to give up her life, Esther, for Gilead Rayas, but rather for Shara Veros, and it's Befarhesia. And that was the Gemara's Kash. Now, other Rishonim say that a Nochri Abol Bas Yisrael is not considered Gilead Rayas because that Bia does not generate neither a chi of misa, not even a chi of kares. And therefore, when the Torah says that a woman has to give up her life rather than have this Bia, a married woman, it's talking about Nara Murasa. That's the parsha. And in that parsha, Nara Murasa, if she has that relationship, she's chayav misa or at least kares. That makes it into Gilead Rayas of Yehar Gal Yavar. But in the case of an Akum, where there's no chi of misa or chi of kares, it's not an Erev. That's the Shita of Rabbeinu Tam. But as we said before, Rabbeinu Tam is differentiating between the Isur Labal and the Isur Laboel. And therefore, when the Akum has a relationship with a married woman, it would not generate an Isur Laboel, even though it generates an Isur Labal. Now, let's read a Rambam in Hilchas Gerushin. The Rambam is interpreting a pasuk in Parshas Ki Teitze in Dvarim Chav Dalet. Lo yuchal bailo rishon asher shulcha loshav lekachta achrei asher hu tama ki toeva hi. A man divorces his wife. She goes ahead and has a relationship with another man, and now he wants to remarry his wife. He can't do so. The Rambam writes, "Ubechlal lav zeh shekol isha shezinsa tachas bailo nesra al bailo v'loko leo shenemar achrei asher hu tama v'arei nitma'a." So it means that a man can't remarry his wife after he divorced her and she was married to someone else, and that's called tumah. And the tumah is generated by the fact that she has a relationship with someone else. How much more so if she has an adulterous relationship while she's married to her husband? That ma'aseh bia is going to generate an isur labal. It's like a husband who's remarrying his wife after she had a relationship with another man. Now we're going to look at another pasuk. In the parsha of Sota Bamidbar Hey, V'shachav ish osa shichva zora, v'nelam me'ene isha, v'nistera v'hi nitma'a, v'ein ein ba, v'hi lo nitfasa. And the Gemara establishes that it says v'nitma'a twice. And what do we derive from the fact that it repeats v'nitma'a? She's asur lebal v'asur leboel. I'm not sure why we need that drasha of v'nitma when the Rambam already established that he should get malchus for violating the law of lo yuchal ba'ila lekachta achrei asher hu tamah. Do you hear my question? Let me go over the question. The Rambam says that the Isur Lav of Machzir Gushos Alachash and Nises applies in a case of a married woman who had an adulterous relationship. But 1 second. Now I'm just thinking the answer to my question as I'm asking it. Now we have v'nitma echel lebal echel leboel. Maybe because it's only a suffix. Not sure. The drasha of v'nitma, is that a vadai that she had bi'ilo with someone else, or even a suffix? I don't know. Okay, now let's add to the discussion a Gemara Yevamis, Mem Heyam and Beis. Nachri v'eved haba al Yisraelis bein pnuya bein nesua havlad kosher. So the child that's born to a woman, a married Jewish woman who had a relationship with a guy, is kosher. He's not a mamzer. She'ein mamzeris el be'erva v'ein erva el begavra shubitoras gerishim v'kiddushin. The akum shemufka mikidushin lo havi erva. So we're beginning to see in front of our eyes that there's a difference between the Isur L'Baila and the Isur L'Bal. What do I mean? In the case of the Baal, if she had a relationship with another man, then the Rambam says that for him to remain married to her and have a relationship with his wife after she had an adultery relationship, that would be a violation of a lav of lo yuchal ba'ila lekachta, and he gets malchus for that. On the other hand, the Isur L'Boel is only derived from v'nitma. which is called a lav haba mechal esei, but it's not a full-fledged lav. And if the Baal would have a relationship with her, he would not be chayiv malchus. So we said that the Akar Baal Bas Yisrael, the Vlad is kosher, meaning there's no din of an erva here. And even if she's an Nesua, because Mamzerus is only a result of an Iser Arayos. But in the case of a guy, it's not called Arayos. I'm just thinking, could this help us? Could this shed a light on Rabbeinu Tam? Now, Rabbeinu Tam is differentiating between the Baal and the Boel. If the Boel is Yisrael, then it's a full-fledged Erva relationship, and that would generate an Isa Boel in addition to the Isa Baal. But if the Boel is a guy, then Rabbeinu Tam is going to argue that that's not an Erva relationship. And the proof in the pudding is that if they had a child, the child would not be a mamzer. And therefore, Rabbeinu Tam might argue that this extra drasha of Echel Baal, Echel Boel to generate Isa on the Boel only applies when it was an Erva relationship. But in the case of a guy, it's not an Erva relationship. And that's what Rabbeinu Tam means by Zirmas Susim Zirmasa. And he compares it to a Bias Behema. It's not an Erva. The child from this thing would not be a mamzer. And therefore, the halach of Echel Boel wouldn't apply. Because Echel Boel is only applicable when there's a Bias Erva, and the guy is incapable of Bias Erva. Now again, why is the bia of an akum not considered an erva? Because arayas only applies to someone who is included under ishus, meaning under gittin v'kedushin. But a guy is not capable of gittin of creating ishus with an eshes Yisrael, and therefore his bia, since he doesn't have ishus, he doesn't have kedushin, is not called an erva. A bias erva is only a bia to someone who is included in Torah's kedushin. So therefore, when the guy has a relationship with an Ashes Ish, let's say, and he's mufka from kedushin, therefore it's not an erva, and therefore the child is not a mamzer. And the Isa Boel, which is derived from V'nitva V'nitma, we need a Chal Shem erva. Akum is not an erva, and therefore the bias akum doesn't generate an Isa Boel. When we're talking about the Isa Baal, that's already a different story. There the Torah says, Lo yuchal baila rishon shel shulcha lasher v'lekachta akar sherhuta ma ki toevahi. And there's no mention of arayas over here. It just says Achrei Asher Hu Tamah. So the Isa is because she was Nivel Aliacher. It doesn't depend upon whether it's an Erev or not. She had a relationship, had a marriage with another man. And therefore, she's Asur L'Baila. Without erva, even though he's a guy and he's not capable of erva, he's not included in kedusha. But nevertheless, she's nivel aliacher, and nivel aliacher is already enough to generate an isa l'baal. But as far as isa l'boel is concerned, there we need a bias erva. So again, as far as the Baal is concerned, she becomes a surah on the Baal because she had a relationship with another man. And it matters not whether or not that man is an erva or not, whether bia is a bias harayis or not. See, I'm trying to figure out what happens if a man divorces his wife and then she has a relationship with a guy. Can he remarry his wife? I have a feeling that the answer is no. He's still asked to marry her because it doesn't depend upon a shame erva. So the guy doesn't have a shame erva. Now, the word v'nitma, meaning tuma, that refers to harayos. So echel ba'al, echel boel, that would be limited to harayos. And if the boel is an akum, therefore, we will not activate v'nitma because there's no tumas harayos here. Because the Rabbeinu Tam's opinion is that zir masusim zir masam, and it's not a bias erva. And we saw also that the child from such relationship is not a mamzer. It's not a bias erva. So as far as v'nitma is concerned, to generate an isra on the boel, you need an erva, which doesn't apply in the case of a guy. But as far as the Baal is concerned, in addition to v'nitma, as we saw in the Rambam in Perek Yud Aleph Milchas Gerushin, there's an Iser Lav of Matzah Grushasa, of Lo Yuchal Baal Lekachta Achrei Asher Hu Tama. But the pasuk says Achrei Asher Hu Tama. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that, but the Iser of Lo Yuchal Baal Lekachta applies even without an erva. Okay, then. So I think that's where we'll stop for today. And Mirza Hashem, you'll be here tomorrow? Yeah, tomorrow's good. And then Wednesday, I think John and Reuven will be here. I mean, Thursday, I meant to say. So I said Wednesday. Okay, then. Have a great day. Thank you so much.